This test data is messy and difficult to work with. It needs to be cleaned or transformed so we can summarize it or create simple dashboard like this one. Moving from the raw messy test data to this dashboard can be time-consuming and sometimes boring. However, the techniques I am about to share with you should keep you on a happy journey. I will show you quick and easy ways to clean and extract meaningful information from test data. We will learn to pick appropriate function from a list of Excel's test formulas, use the find and replace built-in command, split our test into multiple columns using the test to columns wizard, and allow Excel to guess our intent using the flash fill feature. We will learn how to think through and implement data cleaning tasks in Microsoft Excel. And when a concept or a function is introduced, I will not only demonstrate how to use it, but explain why we are using it. This is to help you apply the concept in your own data cleaning project. Let us start. We want to separate the title of emergency column into type and subtype. That is, we want to have one column telling us whether a call is EMS, fire service, or traffic related, and another column for the additional information provided. We can use Excel's flash fill feature for this. It is arguably the easiest and straightforward approach. If you are using a version of Excel prior to 2013, you do not have flash fill, and I shall momentarily demonstrate other simple techniques you can use to get the work done. However, if you have Excel 2013 or later, you should have flash fill. From the Data tab under the Data Tools group, you should see the flash fill command. The flash fill works by sensing a pattern while typing out our intent. And based on the pattern it discovers, it populates the remaining rows. In cell C2, type EMS, meaning we want the subtest EMS from the entire test in cell B2. Let us see if Excel will be able to guess this pattern. In C3, begin typing, meaning we want to subset EMS from the entire test in cell B3. If Excel guessed our pattern, it should show a preview for all the remaining rows. In this case, Excel has difficulty figuring out a pattern because it does not know whether we want to repeat the content of the cell above or we are extracting a subtest from B3. Let us continue. Now, Excel has sensed the pattern, and so we see a preview for all the remaining rows. Pressing the Enter key will accept the suggestion. This is how the flash fill automatically works. I will undo and show you how we could have manually run the flash fill in case no preview is suggested. Keep the active cell in the column you want to fill. We can click the flash fill command or use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+E. There we see the same result as before. We have the emergency types, and so the first part of the problem is solved. We will use the flash fill again to get the emergency subtype. The good news is that we do not need to stick to the uppercase in the original test. Thus, part of the pattern we want Excel to follow is to convert everything into a capitalized form. Microsoft Excel has guessed our intent by showing us a preview of what we want to do. We will press Enter to accept it. Excel picked the end dash as well. How do we let Excel know that we do not want to include the trailing dash? Ignoring the end dash was not part of the earlier pattern we gave to Excel. So, delete or undo column D. Go to a row where there is a trailing dash and type the emergency subtype without the dash symbol. We want Excel to ignore trailing dash wherever it sees one. We can manually activate flash fill or type some more pattern to refine the guess Excel will make. Then we use the shortcut Ctrl+E to run the flash fill. This is the result we want, no trailing dashes. We now have our subtypes in the required form. Clear the new columns and let us try another approach that works for a version of Excel prior to 2013 as well. Can you see that each of the content of column B is delimited by a colon? This means we can use the Text to Column wizard. Select the column and from the Data tab under the Data Tools group, when we hover the Text to Columns command, there is a tooltip telling us what the command does, splitting a single column of text into multiple columns. And that is precisely what we want to do. Now, click the Text to Columns command. The wizard has determined our data as delimited. If the data you are working with is a fixed width data, then select Fixed Width. We get a preview, and of course, we can see the test data to be separated by a colon. We will go to the next step, allowing us to choose or specify the delimiter that should be used to separate the text into multiple columns. If we pick Tab as our delimiter, we do not see any meaningful split of the data in the preview window. How about semicolon? We do not see any split of data in the preview. Let us choose space. We begin to get some interesting feedbacks in the data preview. Though the emergency type is now separated from the subtype, if we stick to this, we may have to find a way to remove the colon attached to the emergency type. Also, we must combine the subtype which has been split into multiple columns. You may have to scroll through the preview to check if what you are getting makes sense. Sometimes you may see additional columns as you scroll down. Now let us decide to add a colon as a delimiter. Since colon is not one of the options, choose Other and specify by typing the symbol colon on your keyboard. We have now gotten rid of the colon we saw earlier in the preview. We also do not want our subtype to be split into multiple columns, so we will exclude the space delimiter we specified earlier. We get some positive feedback from the data preview, so we will proceed to the next step. We can now select a column and specify the data type. If you want to exclude a column from the final output, you can choose not to import it. If you want to select multiple columns, hold down the Shift key on the keyboard while you click. We can change their data types to text. Also, the text data we are splitting is in column B, and so specifying the destination as B2 will replace the existing data. This is not what we want. We can specify a new destination C2. Go ahead and click Finish to see the final output. We have our test data split into two columns, type and subtype. Some of the subtypes have dash at the tail end, and we need to find a way to remove the dash. Also, we do not want everything to be in uppercase. And you may not be able to see this, but there are some white spaces we need to remove as well. With regards to removing the tail dashes, one way to think about solving the problem is to find a tail dash and replace it with nothing. We may think of using the Find and Replace command to achieve this. From the Home tab, under the Editing group, click Find and select. Choose Replace. There are a couple of things you should know about using this feature. If you do not select the column of interest, it will do a global replacement. We have our column selected, so we should be fine. Another setback is that this way of replacing tests gives no reference to the position of the subtext within the text. We want to replace dash, which is at the tail end of the text and not just everywhere within the text. Let us try it out. We want to find dash and replace it with nothing, so do not type anything in the Replace With field, not even a space. Then click Replace All. Replacement has been done, so click OK and then Close. Though the tail end dashes are replaced, dashes occurring within text have also been replaced, like this one right here. And that is not what we want. Now, we know that using the find and replace command will not give us what we want, so undo the replacement. We will shift our attention to using formulas. This is what we want to do. Try saying it out loud. If the rightmost value is a dash, then modify it by substituting the dash with nothing. Otherwise, return the unmodified value. We also trim the extra spaces in the text string and then capitalize the text instead of leaving it all uppercase. That formula gives us precisely what we want. However, if you are a beginner, then follow me and let us take it piece by piece. There is a formula that works like the find and replace command we saw earlier. It is called substitute. With cell E2 selected, from the Formulas tab under Function Library, click Test and select Substitute. You are presented with a nice interface instead of directly typing into a cell. This formula takes 4 arguments. The first 3 are required and they are boldened. The last one is optional. The text is cell D2. The old text is dash. Just know that the substitute function is case sensitive. Here, unlike the find and replace command, we need to type 2 consecutive quotation marks as our new text to indicate an empty string. This means the old text should be replaced with nothing. We will not worry ourselves with the optional argument, which basically says, if the old text occurs more than once, which of them do you want to replace? We immediately see our result. Let us pick a cell where dash symbol appears at the end. We see that the dash will be removed. Go back to cell D2 and click OK. Double-click the fill handler to populate the formula down the column. The substitute formula does not consider the position of the text we want to replace. We need to find a way to make a substitution only when the dash occurs at the tail end. With cell F2 selected, from the Formula tab under the Function Library, click Test and select Write. The inscription tells us that the formula can give us the end characters of a text string. The last character of the text in cell D2 is Y. That of D12 is dash. The default number of characters to return is 1. If we want 4 characters to be returned, we set this field to 4. We want only the rightmost character, so either we set it to 1 or leave it. Click OK and populate the formula to see the output for all the rows. Now, we have all the ingredients for the soup. Whenever the last character in column F is a dash, we want to use what we have in column E. Otherwise, we use the original value in column D. This sounds like deciding on what to do. And making decisions is exactly what the if function does. With cell G2 selected, from the logical formulas, select if. We will test if F2 is equal to dash. When the test is true, we want E2. Otherwise, D2. Click OK and fill the formula down the cells. We kept the dash in between tests and removed the ending ones. Now, let us do some cleaning here. There are a lot of intermediary columns. We only want to keep the final output. Please do not just go ahead and delete the intermediary columns. There will be a reference error since the final column has a formula that references those columns. Instead, select column G. With the right mouse, click and hold the edge of the selection. Move it a little to column H and bring it back to column G. Release the right mouse and from the options that appear, select Copy here as values only. Column G no longer has formulas. Now, we can go ahead, select all the intermediary columns and delete them. There are further data cleaning to do. We will use the trim function to remove the extra spaces in a test string. This time, we just type it directly in a cell. We also want to see the text appear capitalized instead of uppercase. So, wrap the formula in another formula called proper. Now, we have what we want. Use the technique we talked earlier to delete the intermediary columns. We will now look at extracting the station name from the text in the description of emergency column. We see a lot of semicolons serving as delimiter in the text string. How do we know the number of semicolons in each cell? From the text functions, select len, short for length. The len function computes the number of characters in a string. The number of characters in cell A2, including the semicolon, is 73, and of A3 is 83. And for A4, we have 58 characters in all. We have already come across the substitute function when we used it to replace or remove characters in a text string. Let us find the length of the text with the semicolon removed. So, for cell A4 with the semicolon removed, there are 55 characters. Including the semicolon, it was 58 characters. This means 3 characters are missing, and they are all semicolons. So, 3 semicolons are in cell A4. The length of A2 is 73. With a semicolon removed, it is 69. Hence, there are 4 semicolons. The take-home here is that the difference between the length of the original text string and the length of the string with the single character removed gives us the number of times that character appears in the text. This approach for finding the number of characters in a text string works if we are looking at a single character like semicolon in our case. To make it more general, so it works for any string of characters, we divide by the length of the string of characters we are interested in. I just wanted to point out that whenever the emergency description is about EMS, there are 4 semicolons. Otherwise, there are 3 semicolons. Now, let's see how we can use the flash fill to get the station names. In D2, we type station 332, the substring in A2. When we begin typing the second subtext from A3, flash fill has not recognized a pattern yet, so we keep on typing until it differs from the content of the cell above. Now, Excel has recognized a pattern, so we press the Enter key to accept it. Though it gets the EMS stations, it failed to recognize the fire stations. Undo and let us fix this. We will provide a pattern for EMS stations in D2. Now, we need a pattern for fire stations, so in D4, type the substring to use as a pattern. Realize I removed the colon that comes after the station because I do not want it to appear as part of the pattern. Remember, we can manually activate the flash fill by clicking it from the Data Tools group, or we can use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+E. We get exactly what we want, all the emergency stations. Since there are no traffic stations, we can filter for just those and then delete. This will leave some blanks in our data, but that is okay. The approach we have used is the same as first filtering for EMS, applying the flash fill to just those records, and then filtering for fire-related records and applying the flash fill to them. We can use the text to columns wizard to hack the emergency stations. First, select cell A2. With the Shift and Control keys held down, press the down arrow to select the contiguous range. From the Data Tools group, click on Text to Columns command, or use the keyboard shortcut Alt+A+E. It has sensed that our data is delimited, and that is what we want. Click Next. Unselect all the delimiters. Select semicolon as delimiter. We begin to see some meaningful results in the preview. All the EMS stations are separated by a semicolon. But The fire stations are a little bit messy. However, we can clean it up a little bit if we add the @ symbol as a delimiter. At least we have been able to split EMS and fire stations into their own columns. Click Next. Let us skip some of the columns, leaving only those with the data we need. With the destination, choose cell D2 so nothing gets overridden. Then click Finish. Let us name the columns EMS station and fire station. We have some cleaning to do. We see that the fire station can be separated from the timestamp by a dash. Select the column with fire station, go back to Test to Columns, click Next, unselect all the delimiters. This time, set the delimiter to dash. We see a meaningful preview, and that is what we want, so click Next. Skip the 2 unwanted columns and then click Finish. We have made some progress, but we must remove the column that appear in the fire station name. Select the fire station column again. This time, from the Home tab on the far right, click Find and Select and choose Replace. We want to find column and replace it with a single space, so just press the spacebar on your keyboard once. Then click Replace All. Replacement has been done, so click OK and close the wizard. Next, we will combine the results of the 2 columns. Insert a new column and call it Station. One way to do this is to use the if function and say if B2 is equal to EMS, then return D2. Otherwise, return E2. Now we have what we want. We can filter and delete the zeros that we see. They appear because traffics have no stations. This approach uses the emergency type, which has nothing to do with column A, the column we are extracting text from. We needed column B to make it work. What if column B was not there? I want to show you the operator for combining text and the concatenate function. Just undo for now or delete the content of column F. We can easily remove all the 12s from the fire station column. Just filter for the 12s, select all of them using Ctrl+Shift+Down and hit the delete key. In the same way, we will remove all the dates from the EMS station column. All the dates are 2015, so type 2015 in the search field and click OK. Now select all and press the delete key. We can go back to our station column. This time, type the formula D2, then ampersand, which is an operator for combining text, and then E2. Essentially, we are combining E2 with nothing. Autofill the formula, and there we see the result we want. We can remove the spaces by wrapping the formula in a trim function. We could have also used the concat or the concatenate function instead of the ampersand operator. Just try it. Let us copy column F onto itself so we can delete the intermediary columns. Select column F. With the right mouse, click and hold the edge of the selection. Move it a little to the left or right and bring it back to column F. Release the mouse and from the options that appear, select Copy Here as Values Only. Now we can go ahead, select all the intermediary columns and delete them. One can observe that having stations appearing in every row in column D is redundant. We already have station as the column header. Can you think of a way to remove the unwanted text? There are multiple ways. For instance, we could split into multiple columns using the space as a delimiter and keep only the part we want. If you thought of using the flash fill, yes, it can also be used. Just remember that the structure of a fire station is a little bit different from that of EMS. The find and replace command can help, and perhaps it is the most intuitive if we do not want to deal with formulas. However, I just want us to use another test formula. It's called replace. With cell E2 selected, go to test formulas and choose replace. The substitute function is also a good candidate here. However, the difference is that the replace function replaces by position, while the substitute function is by content. Sometimes you do not know the actual test you want to replace, but you are confident of its location or position within the test. In that case, the replace function is helpful. It takes 4 required arguments. In our case, the old test is D2. We will start from position 1, indicating the beginning or the first position, and count 8 characters. This should cover the word station, which is 7 character long, plus the single space before the number. We want to replace with nothing, so we put 2 consecutive quotes. We can immediately see the result 332 without the word station and without the white space. That is what we want, so click OK. Autofill to populate other rows. Now select all, and using the right mouse button, move to column D and copy as values only. There is a green triangle at the upper right corner of the cell. It appears when a number is formatted as a test or preceded by apostrophe. If you cannot see it, then go to Excel Formula Options. From Error Checking Rules, click Numbers formatted as test or preceded by an apostrophe. In our case, we can fix these green triangles by selecting all the values, click the letter flag to the left, and select Ignore Error. Those numbers should be test since we are not going to do any numerical calculations on that column. We now have a clean data in their respective columns. It is convenient now to use the data to answer some data analysis questions and even build a dashboard. I hope you have learned a lot about wrangling text or strings using Microsoft Excel. This is an introductory tutorial. There are some more functions we could have explored. As a matter of fact, we could do text extraction using formulas only. And as a bonus, I will just show you how to get the emergency type using a formula. This was the column we split into emergency type and subtype. You will see that the type is separated from the subtype by a colon. This means anything to the left is the emergency type. There is a formula that gives us the leftmost characters of a text string. It is called left. With B2 selected, from test formula, select left. If you remember the right function we talked about earlier, the left function is just the opposite. Let us set A2 as our test. We see that the leftmost character is E. Set the number of characters to 3 and we have EMS. If our test is coming from A4, we get just the first 3 characters of the word. We can correct it by changing the number of characters from 3 to 4. Then we see the full word fire. You should realize that to get what we want, we need to vary the number of characters. But how do we know the number of characters to subset? We see that EMS, fire, and traffic in our data are all followed by a colon. This means if we can find the position of this colon and subtract 1 from it, we should know the number of characters to subset. For instance, changing the number of characters here to 5 will give us the colon as well. So, to get just fire, we need to subtract 1. Looking for the beginning position of a test string within another test string is what the find function is used for. Instead of typing in a number for the number of characters to subset, we are going to use a formula to determine the number. I will just type in the function and explain what it is doing. Find the colon symbol in cell A4. It rightly determines that the colon is in the 5th position within the test string. This gives us the word fire with a colon at the end. To exclude the colon, we need one less than the current number of characters, and there we just see fire. Change A4 to A2 in all the fields. We get EMS. This is what we want, so click OK. Then autofill. This is how we can get the emergency type. Try and use either a combination of write, learn, and find formulas to get the emergency subtype. If you are adventurous, you can also combine mid, learn, and find formulas. Your formulas should look something like this. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching.